We now here at CNN News 18 have managed to access for the very first time the fine print of what the India-US trade deal looks like. Sources have told our sister channel CNBC TV 18, right now India exports about $45 billion worth of goods to America. $30 billion worth of those Indian exports will now be subject to 18% tariffs. The remaining will be brought down to 0% duty. India and the United States will also work on finalizing the joint statement. That's the indication that's been given by the Commerce Ministry. That's going to happen in the next few days. And following that, there will be the signing of the deal. The US president will also sign an executive order which will allow us to understand the framework of this deal, all of which is expected over the next few days. Sources also telling CNN News 18 that labor-intensive exports to the United States, and some of these sectors were pretty badly hit in the last few months. Leather, textiles, apparel, footwear, gems and jewelry, all of this will now get competitive rates. And that is very, very significant because Indian exports were not being able to compete at 50%. At 18%, they are much more competitive, and it is slightly better than some of our South Asian peers, Pakistan at 19%, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka at 20%, etc. Also, very importantly, and this was a bone of contention between India and the United States, the red lines on agriculture, dairy, when it comes to genetically modified crop, when it comes to maize, pulses, etc. India is firm on its red lines, and those red lines have been respected. There are some agri products like pecan nuts, walnuts, almonds, etc., where India and the United States seem to have arrived at a mutually acceptable solution whereby there will be some degree of Indian imports or increased Indian imports from America. Let me go across to Parikshit Luthra, who's breaking the story for us. For the very first time, Parikshit, we now have visibility to some of the fine print. Walk us through what all you're learning from your sources as to what India has agreed to on some of these sensitive areas, agri and dairy, the Russian oil stuff, and ultimately also the big claim that Trump has made yesterday in his post that India has agreed to buy $500 billion of American products.
First up, US and India have reached an understanding on reducing purchases of Russian oil. And therefore, very soon, possibly in the next few days, we're going to see an executive order from the White House eliminating the 25% penalty tariff on India because of purchases of Russian oil. Now, to what extent and by when India will further taper down purchases of Russian oil, that remains to be seen. Having said that, the next phase would be finalizing a joint statement on whatever has been agreed upon between India and the US, and then you'll have the signing of the deal. We get to know from sources that changes in the US Federal Register may be made in the next few days, and that is when the new tariffs for India and US will become effective. Now, labor-intensive exports, they were badly hit. Sectors like textile, because the tariff overnight increased to 50%. And therefore, what is going to happen now, once this deal is finalized, is that $30 billion worth of India's labor exports, labor-intensive exports to the United States, they will be subject to an 18% tariff, giving us comparative advantage over geographies like China, Vietnam, and Indonesia. Speaking about Section 232 tariffs on automobiles and steel, they stay as it is. There is not going to be any change on that. Now, what we have committed to in terms of $500 billion of American goods, make in American goods, sources say we're only buying what we need for our economic and energy security. And this includes oil and LNG, aeroplanes, aircraft components, precious metals, diamonds, tech products, high-tech chips, products for data centers. All this will be done over 5 years, and this is going to be an intention from India, a commitment that we are going to explore and look to buy all these products over the next 4 to 5 years as well. Exports of pharma, mobile phones, minerals, natural resources, which are already exempted, and I'm talking about $44 billion worth of products exempted from these reciprocal tariffs, they continue to be exempted as well. Red lines on agriculture and dairy respected. So no access for GM corn, for that matter, or wheat, rice, maize and dairy. Yes, some concessions have been given by India on US agriculture products, but those are very niche sectors like cherries, for that matter, pecan nuts, as you also rightly said, blueberries. Those don't really hurt the Indian economy or Indian farmers. Jamieson Greer, the USTR, has told CNBC International that India has agreed to bring tariffs on all industrial goods, US industrial goods, down to zero. We're still awaiting a fine print on that, but we also believe that India will be getting a very liberalized tariff regime, almost down to zero on many tariff lines as well. Details of this will come out in the next few days.
All right, Parikshit, we'll leave it at that. That's the fine print. You heard it first here on CNN News 18 as to what are the items that India would likely buy from the United States. What are the Indian exports that will now face reduced duties going into America? Thanks very much for joining us.